everybody, it's Jen with Caketastic Cakes, and I'm going to show you something vintage and fun. It is a Super Nintendo Entertainment System game cartridge that I made out of gum paste. It's an edible cake decoration. So if you're ready to make something old-fashioned and fun, then come along with me. And before I get too far into this, if you need any tools or supplies that you see me use, if you check the link in the description, it will take you to my Amazon shop and you'll be able to find anything you might need. Now, I do have gum paste here. I'm not using fondant, I'm using gum paste. I will put a link showing the difference between the two. But this is what I prefer to make decorations out of. It sets up nice and firm, it doesn't crack or split or anything, and I prefer it. Anyway, okay, I've got my two sticks there. They're the same height, and I'm rolling out my gum paste pretty thick. It's maybe, I don't know, no, 1/3 of an inch thick, maybe, something like right about there. And I'm trimming it into a rectangle. If you look up the dimensions of an actual cartridge, you would be able to see the exact size you want it to be if you want it to be perfectly the same. Mine is actually a little bit smaller. So, okay, I've got my rectangle there, putting it on a paper towel just because it's easier to move around. I put a small dent in the surface. It's kind of hard to see. And I'm going to measure out how far I made the dent just on an extra piece of gum paste there. And I'm going to put a second dent up and down on the other side as well. These are going to become part of the details, and I'm trying to make it as symmetrical as possible. And once I have my initial markers in there, I'm going to put 5 creases. So I put one right in the center up to that line, that vertical line I made. And I'm going to put 2 on either side as evenly spaced as possible. Here you could do better than me and actually measure it and divide it and make sure that it is precisely spaced. I chose not to do that. I threw caution to the wind and let fate carry me where it may. So my spacing is not exactly perfect, but it's still pretty darn good. But at the end of the day, you're going to add 5 of those little creases in there. I'm using the back of my knife so I don't cut it, and I'm rolling the sides up and into the crease, and then making my creases a little deeper so they really stand out. Because if you look at the old game cartridges, I don't know, the creases on the side, they kind of like roll into it. They're a little bit rounded, so that's what I was trying to do. Now, when I do the other side, I'm just matching my lines up to the ones I already made. I'm not going to bother trying to space them exactly right. I'm going to try to make it even with the other side. Just like before, I'm using the back of my knife, rolling up the side of it to create the lines, dents, I don't know what you call them, on the sides of the cartridge as well. And now I've got this thing. I don't know what it even kind of looks like little feathers or something coming off the side. Okay, now I'm going to take my ball tool, and using the small ball, going to put a good indentation into the bottom section of each bottom rectangle, if you want to call it that. That's where, if you look at at the cartridge, you'll see the little screw goes in to hold the case shut. Now this piece is going to be some of the details for the cartridge itself. It's going to end up like a letter H. We're not there yet. We're not anywhere near there yet. We've got to do some measuring. So I'm using my square cutters there, and they are also, in my Amazon shop if you want to find a nice set of square cutters. These are the ones I use. And I'm picked out a size that is inside those 2 vertical lines, those 2 original lines that I made. And I'm cutting on the outside of it. I just want a proper width rectangle is really what I'm going for here. And this is going to become the foundation of that letter H that I told you we're going to be making. So I'm going to just kind of work at it, measure it, cut, measure, cut, measure, cut. You want it to be able to wrap over the top where those 2 little circles are. That's the bottom of our cartridge. Excuse my shoulder there. And I'm going to cut it off flush with the bottom, but like I said, it wraps over the top to the back. You can even see the little indentation where it folded over at the top. So it lays even at the bottom and then folds over the top just like that. Okay, that's the size you're going for. Now I'm going to take a smaller square and I'm going to measure it out until I find something that sits inside of that rectangle I just laid down. Because again, we want to create a letter H. I'm going to use my knife and make a couple of nice straight lines, just my guidelines there. And once I actually cut it a little better, you're going to see what I did. But I'm going to cut out the center chunk that I marked, but I'm leaving the two sides so they have a thin little strip of gum paste. I switched over to my X-Acto knife because it's much sharper and precise, and it's just better for these fine little skinny details like what I'm doing right here. So just take your time with it, and I will tell you, I redid this, oh my gosh, maybe 5 times before I was happy with it, and you ended up seeing this perfect version right off the bat. So if you mess it up, if you hate it, you just scrunch it back up, just knead it back up and start over again. Okay? It happens. That's reality. It's not what you see here necessarily. The first time's perfect. All right, once I have it laid out, I'd put it on, attached it with a little bit of water, marking out the same thickness as my initial bottom letter H legs, whatever you want to call them. I'm going to cut out a top rectangle now, but you want to leave the thickness in the center so that that of those 5 lines we made on the side, the middle line is in the center of your thick band that you left for the letter H. So we've got our two skinny legs for our letter H and a nice fat letter cross band from our H. I'm using this. Yeah, you could use a ruler or something to press down to create kind of just like a little dip. That's all it is. I don't know. If you look at the game cartridge, you'll see what I'm talking about and what it means. So that's all I did for that. So that part is done. I took some white gum paste right here, and this is going to become the label for the game. So again, make sure you have it on the right end. Those little circles we made, that's the bottom. And this is again white gum paste rolled nice and thin. It's got to sit inside that letter H, so you do want it to be a little thinner. And once you trim it down to the right size so that it fits in there, it folds over the top, add a little bit of water to the back of it and stick it into place. Now this part's up to you. I let it sit for a few hours so it could dry a bit. And once it was dry, a little bit more dry, I took it back out to keep going with it. If you keep continuing on the label part when it's not completely dry, you're going to have a harder time. But for now, anyway, I put 2 little beads of very, very light gray gum paste in there, and I poked a hole in the center with just my little tool there, my veining tool, in order to make it look like the little screws that hold the case shut. And now it's time to color. I free-handed this. I don't have a Cricut or anything, so if you do have something like that, you could just print a vintage looking label, a game label, and stick it on there. But I just got a set of food coloring markers, and I just colored it in, and I did the best I could. It's not perfect, absolutely not, but as long as it looks like it, and people recognize it for what it is, you nailed it. So the person who got this was actually very happy with it, I gotta say. And I was proud of it too for it being free-handed. But at the end of the day, once you color it in, you've got yourself a very cool vintage edible cake topper Super Nintendo Entertainment System game cartridge. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe because it helps me out as well. And again, we can help each other out. I've got a ton of other videos out there, all kinds of different video game themes, consoles, controllers, you name it. There's going to be a lot more Super NES stuff coming out very soon. So be sure to take a look. And as always, thanks for watching Caketastic Cakes.